What if the pond sitting quietly in your backyard could actually generate electricity? Not in some faraway commercial solar farm, but right there on your own property. I used to look at my pond every day and think it was just sitting there. It held water for the garden, looked nice in the summer, and that was about it. Meanwhile, my electricity bill kept climbing, and I kept wishing I had more space to put solar panels without turning my whole yard into a power plant. Then I started wondering, what if I could use the water instead of the land? That question led me down a rabbit hole, and eventually to building my own floating solar system, not a tiny fountain pump. A real setup that actually produces usable power. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. The good, the bad, and the almost disastrous. You'll see the drone footage, the real power numbers, the mistakes I made along the way, and whether this is actually worth doing if you have a pond on your homestead. But before we get into the build, let me take you back to the beginning, because this whole idea started from a very simple frustration. Like a lot of you watching, I live on a bit of land. I've got a garden, some fruit trees, and yes, a decent-sized pond. It's maybe half an acre, beautiful in the spring and summer. But every month when the electric bill came in, I kept thinking about how much potential that water surface had, just sitting there under the sun. I already knew land-mounted solar was expensive and took up space I wanted to keep for other things. And putting panels on my roof wasn't ideal either. So I started researching floating solar, or photovoltaics as some people call it. The more I read, the more it made sense. Water keeps the panels cooler, which can actually increase efficiency. The shade from the panels can reduce water evaporation. And best of all, you're not sacrificing garden space or pasture. But here's the thing, almost everything I found online was either huge commercial projects on reservoirs or tiny little solar fountain kits for bird baths. There wasn't much in between for someone like me who wanted to build something real, but still DIY. So I decided to try it myself. I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm just a homesteader who likes figuring things out and hates wasting money on power bills. I made plenty of mistakes, some of them pretty expensive, but I also learned a lot. And now, after everything, my pond is doing something it never did before. It's making electricity. If you've ever looked at your own pond or lake and thought, there's got to be a better use for all that surface area, then this video is for you. Whether you want to power a pump, charge batteries, or just experiment with something different, I'm going to walk you through the entire process step by step, mistakes and all. So stay with me, because what started as a crazy idea turned into one of the most interesting projects I've ever done on this homestead. And it all began with one simple question. What if my pond could actually work for me? Once I made the decision to build a floating solar system myself, the biggest challenge right from the start was figuring out how to make a platform that could actually float safely while holding real solar panels. I didn't want to spend a lot of money on a commercial floating mount system, so I went with a DIY approach, using 4 5-gallon plastic barrels as the main source of buoyancy. From what I researched, each barrel can support roughly 400 to 450 pounds when it's submerged about halfway. I had two 400-watt panels, each weighing around 45 pounds, plus the weight of the wooden frame, hardware, and wiring. My rough calculation told me that 4 barrels should be enough, but only if the weight was distributed evenly and the frame was strong enough to handle movement on the water. I decided to build the frame using pressure-treated lumber. For the 2 main long beams, I used 2x8 boards instead of 2x6 because I wanted more strength and less flex. The cross members were 2x6, and I added diagonal bracing on both the top and bottom layers of the frame to prevent it from twisting or racking. This was something I initially underestimated. I used stainless steel bolts, brackets, and screws throughout because regular hardware would rust very quickly, being constantly exposed to water and moisture. The overall size of the platform ended up being about 12 feet long by 8 feet wide. I positioned the 4 barrels at the corners, but inset them about 10 to 12 inches from the edge so they would sit more directly under the main weight of the panels. I also added an extra crossbeam right in the middle to help distribute the load better. Building the frame on land took me most of a weekend. I made sure all the corners were square and added triangulation with the diagonal braces. After the frame was assembled, I flipped it over and attached the barrels underneath, using heavy-duty ratchet straps and stainless steel banding. I also drilled small weep holes near the top of each barrel and sealed the lids with marine-grade silicone, just in case any water ever got inside. When we finally carried the platform down to the pond and floated it for the first time, it actually looked pretty stable. But as soon as I started placing the solar panels on top, one corner began to dip lower than the others. Water started creeping up the side of one barrel. The whole structure had a slight twist to it, and it felt less solid than I expected. That's when I realized I had made a few technical mistakes. First, I didn't properly account for how the weight of the panels would shift the center of gravity. Second, even though I added diagonal bracing, it wasn't enough to resist the torque once the panels were mounted. The frame was flexing more than I thought it would. I had focused too much on making it cheap and simple, and not enough on structural rigidity and proper load distribution. I had no choice but to pull everything back to shore and rebuild it. This time I made several changes. I upgraded the two main long beams to 2x8 lumber, added a second layer of cross bracing, and installed vertical supports that ran from the top frame directly down to the barrels. I also spaced the barrels a little farther apart to improve stability. It took me another day and a half to take it apart and put it back together stronger. After the second build, we floated it again and tested it more carefully. I stood on different sections and even placed temporary weights where the panels would sit to check for any dipping or twisting. This time the platform stayed level and felt much more rigid. I was finally satisfied that it could handle real conditions. Looking back, that whole process taught me an important lesson about building anything that floats. Buoyancy is only part of the equation. You also need enough structural strength and proper weight distribution. If the frame twists even slightly over time, it can stress the panel mounts and create long-term problems. At this point, the floating platform was finally ready. But I still had two big challenges ahead of me that I hadn't fully thought through yet: how to properly anchor the whole system in the pond, and how to run the electrical wiring safely across the water without creating any hazards. For a while after the second build, things were finally going well. The platform floated level, it felt solid, and I was excited to move forward with mounting the panels and running the wiring. I thought the hard part was over. I was wrong. About a week after everything was installed and the system started producing power, we had a stretch of bad weather. It wasn't a major storm, just strong winds with gusts around 25 to 30 miles per hour, not unusual where I lived. But it was enough to expose a weakness I hadn't fully addressed. When I went out to check the system the next morning, my stomach dropped. One side of the platform had shifted noticeably. Two of the anchor lines were loose, and the whole structure had rotated almost 45 degrees. One corner was sitting lower than the others, and water was splashing up against the edge of the frame, right where the wiring entered. It wasn't underwater yet, but it was way too close for comfort. I realized I had made a serious mistake with the anchoring system. I had used regular rope and simple weights, thinking it would be enough to keep everything in place. But under real wind and wave action, the platform was moving around too much. The constant movement was stressing the frame and pulling on the wiring. I spent the entire day in the water trying to stabilize everything. I had to retension the anchors, add 2 more concrete blocks, and switch from rope to heavy-duty chain and proper mooring lines. I also raised the wiring higher and replaced the junction box with a better waterproof one that had strain relief so the cables wouldn't get pulled every time the platform moved. That incident scared me. If I hadn't checked on it in time, the wiring could have gotten submerged, or worse, the constant movement could have damaged the panel connections over time. It made me realize that building something that floats is only half the job. Keeping it stable and safe in real weather conditions is just as important. After that, I made several improvements. I added a second set of anchors in a different direction to limit rotation. I also installed rubber bumpers and padding where the chains connected to the frame to reduce wear. On the electrical side, I switched to marine-grade cable, applied dielectric grease to every connection, and ran the wires through conduit where possible. I also added a float switch as a backup water-level warning system. I used a bilge pump-style float switch, a small sealed device with a floating arm inside. When water rises and lifts the float, it closes the circuit. I mounted it on the side of the frame, right next to the main electrical box, at a height where it would trigger before water could reach the wiring. I wired the float switch to a 12V buzzer and a bright LED warning light mounted on a post on the shore. If the water ever rises too high, the buzzer sounds and the light turns on, alerting me even if I'm not near the pond. I also connected it to a relay that can cut power to the charge controller as a final safety measure. I used marine-grade wire throughout and sealed every connection with dielectric grease and heat shrink tubing. I tested it by manually lifting the float to make sure the buzzer and light worked properly before relying on it. It took me a few more days to get everything secure and safe again, but once it was done, I felt much more confident. The system survived the next few windy days without any issues, and I finally started seeing consistent power production. That whole experience taught me something important. When you're working with electricity around water, you have to over-engineer the safety aspects. You can't just hope nothing bad will happen. Wind, waves, and constant movement will find every weak point in your design. From that point on, I became much more careful with every connection and every anchor point. I also started checking the system more regularly, especially after bad weather. By the time I finished fixing everything, the floating solar system was finally stable, safe, and actually working the way I had hoped. And that's when I started getting the results I had been waiting for. After all the setbacks, the rebuilding, the anchoring problems, and the safety upgrades, I finally reached the part I had been looking forward to the most, seeing what the system could actually do. Once everything was stable and protected, I turned the system on and started monitoring the output. I installed a simple power meter so I could track how much electricity was being produced in real time. On a good sunny day, the 2400-watt panels were generating between 550 and 650 watts at peak. Over the course of a full day, I was seeing anywhere from 2.8 to 3.6 kilowatt hours, depending on the weather and the season. That might not sound like a huge amount, but for my homestead, it was meaningful. It was enough to run my pond pump, charge a small battery bank, and power some lights and small tools during the day. More importantly, it was power I didn't have to pay for, and it was coming from a space that was previously doing nothing. One of the most satisfying parts was comparing before and after. Before this project, that section of the pond was just open water. Now, when I fly the drone over it, I can see a clean, organized array of solar panels quietly turning sunlight into usable electricity. It's not a massive commercial installation, but it's mine and it works. I also noticed another benefit I didn't expect as much. Because the panels cover a portion of the water surface, I've seen a noticeable reduction in algae growth in that area. The shade seems to help keep the water cooler and limits the sunlight that algae needs to thrive. It's not a dramatic change, but it's a nice secondary benefit on top of the electricity. Of course, this system isn't perfect. It requires more maintenance than a ground-mounted array. I have to check the anchors and connections regularly, especially after storms. The float switch and waterproofing need occasional inspection. And during winter, snow can build up on the panels, though it usually slides off once the sun comes out. Still, looking back at everything I went through, the initial design mistakes, the near miss with the wiring, and all the improvements I had to make, I'm glad I did it. This project taught me a lot about building on water, working with electricity safely, and not underestimating how much movement and weather can affect a floating structure. If you have a pond and you're thinking about trying something similar, here's my honest advice. Start small if you're new to this. Focus heavily on the structural integrity and anchoring first. That's where most problems happen. Don't cheap out on waterproofing and electrical safety, and add some kind of water level warning system, even if it's simple. It could save you from a much bigger headache later. Building a floating solar system isn't the easiest DIY project, but it's one of the most rewarding ones I've done on this homestead. There's something special about looking out at your pond and knowing that the water isn't just sitting there anymore, it's actually working for you. Thanks for following along with this whole journey. If you're considering a project like this, I hope my experience helps you avoid some of the mistakes I made. And if you already have something similar going on, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. For now, I'm going to keep monitoring the system, make small improvements over time, and enjoy the fact that my pond is finally pulling its weight.